And now something completely different.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you live just outside
I like to think balding is just God's way of saying, now let's see you get laid.
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
What I'd really like to do is put the greatness of this man in perspective.
The hair loss community has a lot to be thankful for, having you as a spokesperson.
You mean you just call this guy up?
About life and about reality.
And now, America's #1 reality radio show for men. Live from Los Angeles, it's Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Hey guys, welcome to The Bald Truth UK. It's great to be here. You know, listen, we actually started the program about a month ago. We've only done, this is our second live broadcast, and I want to apologize to you guys for some of the technical difficulties that we've been having trying to get this thing off the ground. But today we think we got it up and running. Obviously we do. Luckily we're working with our studio in New York. Andrew Zarian from the guys from Queens Network was kind enough to capture both mine and Spex' Skype feed and send this out to the world. So I want to thank Andrew for that. Let me give out the phone number. It's 0203-3724683. And listen, if you're new to the broadcast, don't know who I am or why we're here, you know, this is the Hair Loss Show. I'm a consumer advocate for men and women suffering with hair loss. I'm the author of The Bald Truth and the Truth About Women's Hair Loss. And I've been doing this broadcast here in Los Angeles, in the U.S., throughout the entire country for the past 14 years. Actually, I started in my home state of New York, but we've been on the air for a long time. And by popular demand, because the show has done so well over the years here in the U.S., and because there are so many guys in the U.K. who are dealing with hair loss and, you know, who have found this program through the internet, you know, we decided to bring it live to you guys in the UK and Europe, and I've been having a blast so far. As you know, my sidekick for this broadcast is the one and only Spencer Stevenson, Spex, as he's known online. He's a hair loss consumer advocate in his own right. He is a guy who's been through the mill when it comes to not only dealing with his own hair loss, but trying to remedy his hair loss through, you know, surgical intervention. And what I didn't know about Spex, and I don't mean to laugh because it's not funny, but I didn't know that he was one of the guys who was burned by, you know, one of these hair club type of places, but in the UK. And, you know, Spex, I've known you for a long time, but I don't know how we never discussed that. Maybe, and I even read your ebook, and maybe I just forgot, because you don't talk about that a lot online.
It's something, I mean, yeah. Hi, Spence, anyway, and hi, listeners. But yeah, it's something that I don't generally discuss. It's one of those things that's been parked, you know, back over a decade ago. But however, yeah, I was burnt by the industry from the word go, by a company who basically falsely advertised what it is they were selling. And, you know, it's not something that I dwell on. Obviously, I meet a lot of people. I interact with a lot of people. It's a very common, very familiar tale. In particular, this particular company over here in the UK, and it's something that I gladly share on a personal basis with people. If it's something that I don't kind of, you know, go online about and dwell on, like I don't really go online and dwell on about my old surgeries. You know, my story's old news now. You can easily find it online, and it's all about now kind of advocating and educating and empowering individuals with regards to appropriate treatments, you know, and not dwelling on the stuff that doesn't work. And because, gosh, we'd be here forever if we were doing that.
You know, the thing is, you know, like that's really part of you. I mean, the part of the reason why I'm here and I do what I do is because when I started out in the hair loss world, you know, my own hair loss world, suffering with hair loss at a young age, you know, there was nothing out there. There was nowhere to turn, and I was getting conned and misled, and I bought all kinds of products and services and spent thousands of dollars. And I was lucky enough that I didn't take the route that you did. But, you know, that is part of the reason that we're here, because, you know, we were the regular guys out there who were dealing with this, who were getting ripped off, who were getting screwed over. You, unfortunately, and that's why I love having you on this broadcast, besides, you know, the fact that you've been helping people for so long, but you have been through the mill yourself. So you understand what it's like to be taken advantage of on every level in this industry, where I kind of
Complete.
I pulled the reins in after I was ripped off with the products and services, as opposed to, going under the knife and making a bad mistake, or getting the hairpiece glued on and making that mistake.
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand from an emotional kind of level through to the physical, the spiritual. I've been there, I've done it, and and that's why it's a real honor to be part of the show and to truly kind of connect with people, and they can know in full well that they can relate, because we discuss different things, and they'll be able to tune in and relate to our stories. Our stories are different. However, we categorically know, despite our individual journeys, what this industry is like and how it is governed, and the pitfalls that are so easily and so readily available for people to fall into. And it's so important. I felt it was so vital as part of my journey, as part of my success story, albeit over a 10-year period. I finally kind of got there and understood how best go about addressing your hair loss. Generally, each individual wants to approach it differently. However, I have learned through my own bitter experience and through meeting countless hair loss sufferers, hundreds, met hundreds, interacted with thousands, and we are a brotherhood of individuals who all share this same anxiety. And I felt it personally very important to help and to pay forward and to educate, so that people didn't make the same classic mistakes that I made. And by the radio show, we are going to, empower so many individuals. As I already know, it's helped so many so far. I've had various emails from people that have tuned into the previous live show, have watched the various different segments, the pre-recorded segments that we've put together. And as you know, we have a library ready to upload of various different interviews that we've done with various different individuals that also have got incredible stories to tell, and it will enable listeners to identify with those stories and keep them safe, let's hope.
Well, listen, I will tell you this, that since we started this, and it's really been an experiment, and, unfortunately, part of the experiment is working out the technical kinks. I mean, let's face it, we have a studio now in London. You're there. You are, we're Skyping you in from, basically across the world. I'm here in Los Angeles. So we've been having that issue. And we have a studio in New York, luckily. We're able to kind of mix everything together and get it out there. But that's been part of the experiment as well. But what I have noticed is that my email box is, and it's been full for a long time from guys from the UK and from women, sadly. But now they are kind of chomping at the bit to see the next show. So I know we're doing something right, and that's what's exciting about this. Let me give out the phone number. It is 0203-3724-683. That is our UK line. So that's 0203-3724-683. If you have any questions, concerns about your hair loss, just need to vent, listen, we have been through the mill. And like Spex says, we have different stories. I kind of approach things differently. By getting out there, writing my experiences down, getting it out there, and getting published to kind of expose the industry for what it is. Spex came about it from a different angle, but now he is getting a lot of local press, which is amazing. And to me, it's just, when I think about it, Spex, if I had the internet when I started, and the internet was in its infancy, I think things would have taken a much different turn, and it would have been a faster evolution to get this information out to the public, because I had to do it old school, man. I had to get published. I had to get on the radio. And, when you're dealing with one local market and then you get onto two, and, luckily we were able to develop a national, following, it's still nothing. It pales in comparison to what we're able to do now online. I mean, there are literally right now, and this, it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon my time. There are thousands of people watching this show, and, they've had to, they're not just in their car and they happen to find us accidentally. They had to really take the time to say, you know what? I want to watch The Bald Truth on Sunday. And that's what's amazing. It really shows a loyalty and a tremendous interest for what we're doing. And I'm excited about this, man. I'm excited about making changes in the UK.
It really does, because and I must say, I must just reiterate what you said when you opened the show. Apologies to the vast number of people that because of the technical issues that we have had with the previous live shows that we haven't run, because I do know that there's been the show is being housed in various different places, and we there were a number of people that were kind of emailing in or emailing the various places that are housing the live show saying what's happened, and I just want to confirm to the viewers that we've ironed out the kinks. This is going to be a regular, potentially fortnightly live show. There are going to be regular segments uploaded daily for you to listen into and tune into and learn from and get educated from. But just to re-emphasize, we've got there, and we do apologize to all the guys that were kind of waiting with bated breath for the next live show, because I'm aware of the people that were very disappointed. And moving forward, let's get some, feel free to call in. It's quite overwhelming, the number of people that are listening to the show, and
listen, let's face it. I don't mean to cut you off. I mean, 2/3 of men by the age of 35 are dealing with hair loss. I just had a meeting this morning, believe it or not, on a Sunday. And, I mean, great guy, and, the first thing that I noticed, obviously, because I'm in the business, is that he's dealing with hair loss. And there's another guy in the room, he's dealing with hair loss. And these are not old guys, these are young guys. It is a silent epidemic of biblical proportions. I say that all the time. So, I mean, it's no wonder that we've been able to kind of, touch so many people, over the years. And now that we're out there and out here in Europe in a bigger way, I'm telling you, man, I already see the changes. I am being contacted by industry people who I probably wouldn't ever touch with a 10-foot pole, but they want to figure out ways to get involved because they know that we are setting the tone now in the European market. And, and that's powerful. And it's not that we're necessarily just the ones setting the tone. It's the consumers, the guys that are going to be calling this program, who are going to be telling their stories and their horror stories and their success stories and sharing their hopes and their dreams about, what it is to hopefully recover from hair loss, or at least learn to deal with it. So that's what's exciting. And, let's I'm going to give out the phone number, take some phone calls, and kind of let's see who's out there. It's 0203-3724-683. Give us a call here at The Bald Truth. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on The Bald Truth. Who's this?
Hi, Spencer and Spex. It's Christoph.
Oh, Chris, man. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. How's it going?
Hey, man, I can't complain. I'm glad you called in. We put up actually some of your, at least one or two of the clips that from the last time you called in, and I got a tremendous response, man. You got a, it's a typical story, but it is, something that's happening to people every day who aren't aware of, the scope and possible pitfalls of this industry.
Oh, most definitely, yeah.
So what's happening, man? What's going on? Anything new?
Not really. I mean, I took into account what you said on the American show last week. So this evening, I got myself a Domino's and a cup of tea, but I didn't get your 6-pack of beer and a bucket of chicken.
You know what, dude? I actually forced. I had a couple of drinks. I did the free for all with Andrew and Coco on GFQ on Friday. Had a couple of drinks, maybe too many, and practically forced common law to get in the car and drive me to KFC. To get a bucket of chicken, man. And it was very enjoyable. I was invited to a Super Bowl party today after the show, and I have a feeling they'll be drinking there. And what do you think I bring? Everyone brings potluck or hors d'oeuvres or whatever, some fancy stuff. I come in with a bucket of chicken. So that's what I like,
Yeah. I just wanted to call in and congratulate you both really on the success of the new show. I've watched all the segments, the first show in particular, and I think it's very fortunate that the industry has us UK viewers actually have two industry experts such as yourself to talk to on a regular basis.
Well, I appreciate that, man. And listen, to tell you the truth, Andrew and I, who is producing the show now, have been talking about doing a show in the UK for a long time. And I've told the story before, but, after I had Spex and the BBC crew here and Joe Tronic in my home here in the studio, Spex contacted me, and I guess it was just serendipitous. He contacted me because he's like, what, he kind of, I think he liked being involved. He liked the atmosphere. He saw the way the show operated, and he wanted to do something together. He approached me. I was like, wow, this is, we were thinking about doing this, and I think you'd be a perfect addition to the Bald Truth brand. And it's just, it's all timing. That's what it is. I was initially going to do the show myself, which is going to be the same, but it wouldn't be the same. We need the English dude.
Of course you need an English dude for the UK show. Of course, but Chris, I really appreciate that, buddy. Thanks very much, and you're an asset to the forum. You really are, and I know you read them really quite regularly. I mean, what's going on at the moment? I've been away for a week. I've been fortunate to go have a ski for the week with some mates. But what's going down? Anything new to discuss?
Yeah, well, I got a few points I actually wanted to raise tonight, and I just wanted your expert opinion on all three of them, the pair. So the first one was, well, as you know, I read the forums quite regularly, and if I'm honest, there appears to me more threads related to finasteride on the boldtruth.com, and in particular to the side effects regarding Propecia. Now, as I've stated before on my threads, that I've been on the drug now for 6 years, and I've had very good success with it with no side effects. I know that Spex speaks very highly of the drug, and I just wondered if you think that the increased number of threads has any relation to you, Spencer, being a big advocate also.
Well, it might. Also, I will tell you that, right now, baldtruthtalk.com is the most trafficked hair loss website in the world. Our traffic, and this is not to sound obnoxious, but currently at least, it is dwarfing some of the other major forums. So I think that the guys who really want to kind of make an impact and get their point across are gravitating towards, baldtruthtalk.com, because it's the most visible and the most viewed forum right now. So, and I noticed that's happening with, other guys who kind of have their own, different agendas that have come from other websites where they were kind of banging their drum on other websites. Now they're kind of focusing on Bald Truth Talk. Listen, and that's great. It's great for traffic. It's great for eyeballs. It's great for, helping to increase and to build the brand. So, I don't mind these guys coming onto our platform and utilizing it. It's important to note that the guys that are out there that really believe that they've been harmed, adversely affected by finasteride, they certainly have the right to get their point across. I'm glad that we have this platform so they can vent and get their point across. It's equally important for the newbies, though, to have some equity of information, to get the other side of the story. And you may be right, because I'm such an advocate for finasteride, because it's changed my life, and because I tell my story all the time. I'm not afraid to tell my story. They are concentrating perhaps a little bit more on the forum for that aspect as well. As Spex knows, I get, and I know that Spex does too, I get emails from that are forwarded to me from my staff, from guys from like Propecia Help, who are all too happy to kind of show me the next negative article that's been, written about finasteride or whatever it is. And listen, guys, I know this stuff is happening to some people, but I do feel, and I really believe this, that it's doing prospective, or hair loss patients or hair loss sufferers a tremendous disservice if they're not able to look at the other side of the coin. And the other side of the coin is that what's happening out there to these guys who are suffering with these adverse side effects, it is still a very, very, very small subset of guys who are having these adverse side effects. And I believe, and I'm a layman, so don't take this as medical advice, but I do believe that some of it, at least, is psychological. And I think that it's unfortunate that young guys who have the opportunity to save their hair like I did, or like Spex has, or like you have, Chris, are being they're shit scared. They're turned off by what's happening on these threads and what they're reading about on the internet. And I know this is long-winded, but I also want to say that, for all you guys who think that somehow this drug is going to be banned, let me tell you something. For the very small percentage that these adverse side effects are occurring in people that are occurring in, there is no way this drug is going to be banned. So the guys who are worried, that are writing on the forum, and I read something about this yesterday or day before yesterday, who are worried that they're not going to have access to finasteride or the brand name Propecia, that is not going to happen. There are drugs out there like, over the counter stomach medications like cimetidine or Tagamet that have in some cases, if used on daily basis, you have about a 25% chance of suffering sexual dysfunction. 25% chance. And this is an over-the-counter remedy. So, I just want you guys who have voiced concerns that you're worried that you're going to lose the opportunity to take this drug. That's not going to happen. Now, Chris, I know that was long-winded, but I just wanted to get it out there that I know what you're talking about, and I think it's a shame. I really do.
I'll quickly just add it, Chris. It's a valid point that you brought up there, because I see a lot of negativity, especially on Bold Truth Talk. However, I don't know. We're not going to go over old. We've discussed this quite regularly recently on another topic, on another segment that we pre-recorded. But there's so many guys that don't document and don't come online that have positive effects from the drug. And I only wish, every guy out there that's having a positive effect, I mean, that the forum wouldn't be able to handle, the number of people signing up.
You're right. Listen, every one of my friends in my personal life, every one of my friends who took my lead, and I'm talking about just about everyone that I know, kids that I grew up with. And I am lucky enough to have a rather large circle of friends, especially guys that I've known for almost a lifetime. Not one of them, not a single one of them had any noticeable adverse side effects. My best friend, two best friends in the world, kids that I grew up with since I was 9 and 10 years old, they started to take it after me. They kind of wish they started when I started to take it. And they, one guy had a kid in the last decade, while he was on it. None of them have ever complained. And now they're older guys. I mean, these are guys who are approaching 50, and they still don't have any adverse side effects. And they have no fear of it because they're not online reading all the effing bullshit that is out there. And I'm not saying that it's all nonsense. I do believe that these side effects occur, and I do believe that in a certain subset of guys, they may be experiencing long-lasting side effects after they discontinue the drug. But I just read something on Bald Truth Talk from a guy and I know that's probably what you're talking about, Chris. I mean, it was a really long post about how finasteride ruined his life. But if you kind of look into, delve into the post, there might be some other issues happening, including, taking antidepressants and, other types of medication. Do you know the post that I'm talking about?
No. I was looking through it, but I didn't actually go into it earlier. But I think I know which one you mean.
And but those are the posts that scare the shit out of people. When you see stuff like finasteride ruined my life, don't touch finasteride. It's like, okay, you have a story to tell. You want to give if this has happened to you, then you have the right to tell that story. But it's the panic, and there's something in life, in the world, in science. Basically, it's a mass hysteria effect. And believe me, I believe that these guys, once they pop that pill, they are impotent because they believe that there's a strong chance of this happening. So it's definitely happening to them. So, once this impacts their lives that way, of course they're going to think that, this is poison. I would think the same thing.
I agree completely, and I mean it's just a shame we don't get more guys talking positively. They get on with their lives, they don't hang around on forums. The guys that have the positive effects get on with their life. However, it is what it is. But Chris, you've been a user for 6-7 years. I've been a user for 14 years, 13, 14. I lost track of the years.
I've been on almost 20.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And I mean, I discussed it with my friends recently since I came out and told my story. I've had so many close friends who didn't even know what I did or what I was involved in as my kind of, pseudonym, and then a couple of my best friends are on the drug now, several months, and no side effects. And they asked me outright, any side effects? I was like, yeah, there are. But if you go and read the internet, you're going to frighten the crap out of yourself as you would do if you research aspirin,
Go ahead, Chris.
Sorry, I was just going to interrupt Spex. I remember the last time on the first show, I think he said that he had some pictures of a friend who he gave the drug to, and he said, look, take it and see it get on, have a read about it. And he said that he had really good positive results. I think his crowns was regrown over the months that he's taken the drug. I just wondered if he had those actual pictures to post check. I think he said he was going to post them, but I haven't seen anything yet. So I was just interested to know.
I will, mate. It's just getting round to it. I definitely will. I'll try and get onto it this week. I'm playing big catch up this week. But yeah, thanks for reminding me. I will. And the guy himself is, I even try and get him online, but it's just not his world. You know, the guy's a builder. He works like 90 hours a week. The poor kid who works for himself. But I'll certainly put those together. But you know what? Only takes 5 minutes of research online on various different websites. You can see the result. Even mine, you go onto my website, you can see where I was at in my mid to my crown, and what a remarkable result I've had. Not only did it improve my mid to my crown, but it actually kind of has kept it for the last 14 years, and it was only going one way. But I'll sort those out, Chris. No problem. But I mean, we talked finasteride to death on this.
I just want to make one more. I just want to make one more point. You know, if I'm going to be completely honest and candid here, if I were a young guy, or if I were, you know, at a stage where I just began to lose hair and I considered taking this medication, there's a good chance that I wouldn't take it because of what is happening online. I would scare the living daylights out of me, and that's, you know, and that's just the way that it is. So I certainly understand what is going on online. I just want people to know, and I also think it's important to know that I have no financial ties to Merck. They are not advertisers of this broadcast. You know, I have chosen to keep the online broadcast completely sponsor-free, which I think is important at this point, at least. You know, we'll see how things go down the line. But, you know, it is a life choice for sure, and you really have to understand what you're getting involved in and know the potential side effects of any drug that you take. But the likelihood of anything happening with this drug is far less than the likelihood of these type of sexual adverse side effects happening with, you know, stuff that's being handed out like candy, like antidepressants. And that is important for guys to know. And, you know, and then you make your own decision. Sadly, though, you know, this is what we have. We don't have much else that really helps us. So if you're choosing not to do this, then you might have to kind of reconsider your approach and, you know, whether or not hair loss is really that important to you and if you're going to be able to deal with it. Because I tell you, I see what's happening online. I see the concoctions that people are putting on their scalps and fighting about on the message forums and debating about on the message forums. The bottom line is I've been doing this for a very long time. I have seen many guys come and go and put up, you know, fight the good fight with all these concoctions that they're getting from, you know, different online resources. And in the end, they always lose. The guys that don't lose are the guys that are using finasteride. For the most part, they're obviously the guys who are dealing with the side effects and the guys it won't work for. So that's it. You guys have to make a choice. We've talked about this to death. But Chris, I know that it's a very active topic on Bald Truth Talk forums, so I could certainly see why you wanted to bring it up again.
Well, what else is going on? What else is going on apart from the general kind of propecia side effect thing, which obviously we see only too regularly. But I mean, what else is current at the moment? Would anything?
Well, one of the other major topics at the moment is, well, since the evolution of FUE since its inception in 2002, there's been several different, well, there's several different harvesting techniques to extract the grass. So you've got the machines now, whether it's the artist or the neograph, and then you've got some of the motorized tools and the manual punches, and also I think the Troy implanter it is that some of the Eastern European surgeons are using. And I've found that there doesn't really seem to be any sort of comprehensive or detailed studies giving a comparison side by side of these different methods against each other or one another. And one of the hot topics at the moment seems to be that some of the guys, without really even seeing any results from the artist machine, they seem to be writing it off and saying, oh, no, I don't really want a machine on my head. I really only want people using manual tools. And I find it a bit silly, really, to write it off when they haven't really seen any results come from it yet. So I just wondered what your thoughts were on that.
Well, I think that's actually a really great point, and I see that happening online. And listen, there are guys who take a dogmatic stance because And a lot of the guys that do have been harmed in the past. They may have gone down the route where they went to a physician who was promoting FUE, who got a lot of online, press, so to speak, and maybe they were using these well, they're not necessarily automated, but these mechanical devices to extract grafts, and they didn't have the best experience in the world. And then they go to another doctor for repair work, and this doctor is using, who has the skill to use a manual punches with leaving minimal scars and just doing a great job. And I can understand why some of these guys are so, they're such staunch advocates of handheld FUE or hand done, for lack of a better term, FUE, as opposed to using the machine. What I do know is this. The NeoGraft, and I'm not a huge fan of the NeoGraft because of the way that it's marketed. It's not necessarily the device itself, but it's really been marketed and sold to physicians, non-cosmetic surgeons or cosmetic surgeons who were never involved in the hair world, as just a way to increase the revenue in their practice, hiring a staff, a per diem staff of techs that would fly in, do the surgery, just under the doctors, the auspices of the physician basically being there. And, and the doctor really doesn't have much skill as far as designing a hairline, and they're really not involved. And that's happening a lot. And that's the way, from what I understand and from what I've seen so far, that machine is being marketed. That's why I'm not a big fan of the NeoGraft. But in the right hands, the NeoGraft is just a device that's used to extract grafts. And if the punch is small enough and the person who is utilizing the machine knows what they're doing, I have seen some really great results, viable grafts that, there is some concern about desiccation of the graft, because it's being sucked through this tube, which is like a drying, from the air or from the vacuum type of suction. I could see that. But for the most part, I have seen, at least like, for instance, Alan Bauman in Boca Raton. I have seen a couple of results in person. I know some of the guys personally, some of the YouTube celebrities that we've done live surgeries with. They're ecstatic. The work looks good. The scarring is really minimal. So, and as far as the artist is concerned, I just spoke to Bob Bernstein the day before yesterday. And he said, listen, if you're going to do FUE, and he wrote the first paper on it, if you're going to do FUE, at least in his mind, this is the way to do it, because he's seeing some really, really good results. Now, the vast majority of his practice is still FUT, and he's able to do FUE by hand. He was one of the first guys to really, do it. But he really believes that this machine is beneficial for the right patient. And as the next iteration, which they're working on now, they're working on smaller and smaller punches. I think that everyone is going to eventually see, you know what, if this is used by the right doctor with the right staff, then it could be great. I mean, what do you think, Spex?
Yeah, I think just to labor on one point there with regards to why people are kind of dismissing the artists already, they tend to be the very kind of the veterans of the industry, and they're so entitled to their opinion. And I think it boils down to the fact of the actual size extraction tool that's being utilized, to them, or to the very experienced kind of hair transplant researcher. They would know that a 1.1 and a 1 mil punch is relatively large, compared to the vast majority of sole FUE practices are using really small extraction tools like 0.6, 0.75, 0.8, and it's like, so when you use that as a comparison to the layman, it's like, I think they're pretty much, they're going to be in the dark with regards to extraction side tools anyway. So I think time will enable us all to see the variety of results. It would be great to have a consistent kind of comparable or a great control over the various different techniques. You will have, the veterans of the industry that are very pro manual punch, the feel of the doctor, the experience of the doctor. I mean, it is, let's face it. Even in my opinion, it's kind of like a no-brainer, in my opinion, that God, I'd rather have a surgeon, an incredibly experienced surgeon, using the smallest tool possible because he knows what he's doing, that will create the minimal amount of scarring and still create a high yield. However, the same, or maybe it's a case of the jury is still out, in my opinion, on this artist. However, you've got some big names, some very big names, some very experienced, some very ethical, some very honorable guys in the industry who have implemented this robot into their practices, and they are saying that they're happy with it.
We have Bob Bernstein, we have Jerry Cooley, we have Jim Harris, who actually, it was his safe system that was kind of incorporated into the artist robot. You have
Dr. Rao,
and Dr. Shapiro have been.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Ziering's actually bringing it to the UK. There's going to be a big thing, so you can actually have one in London. Now, my only issue is this. Say that again.
I personally wouldn't be having one done by it, but that's my opinion. Again, it's only my opinion.
No, absolutely. I understand that. This is my concern, though. My concern is the way these things are marketed. Just because it's a robot, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily cutting edge. It seems cutting edge. It doesn't mean that the surgery itself is going to be any better, or worse for that matter, but any better than what we're seeing today. At this stage, personally, I would probably be more comfortable with a handheld, even if it's a rotary device like the Feller, FUE device, or what John Cole is using, in the hands of a skilled surgeon like the two I just mentioned, then perhaps just sitting down and having this robot remove my grafts with it's being used and manipulated by a less experienced doctor. Now, I have seen some good results coming out of Jim Harris's office. Again, I just had a conversation with Bob Bernstein. He's never bullshitted me. That's the one thing about Bob. He's never bullshitted me, at least that I found out, at least that I'm aware of. He really believes that this is the way to go, and that the next iteration may even be better, because they're working on ways to utilize smaller and smaller punches. So I think it could be good for the industry and very good for the consumer in time. I would probably not jump into anything, especially if someone just got a new machine, for instance, and really stick to the doctors who are really, really well-known and really skilled at all the surgical hair restoration procedures out there, and who really have a track record. The fact that Ron Shapiro has it, I was actually a little surprised, because I know that, and at least initially, he seemed to be a fan of handheld FUE, but he has one, and there's a reason for it. Is it just a financial reason? I don't know. I don't think he really has to worry about that at this point in his career. I mean, he can keep coasting for a very long time without doing any marketing, and people know who Ron Shapiro and Shapiro Medical is. So, I guess like Spex says, only time will tell. I mean, what do you think, Chris, as a consumer?
I'm not really sure. Really. I mean, what tends to get brought up is that a lot of these guys are sort of just in it for the money themselves, and they're less orientated towards the patient themselves. I think that's absolutely rubbish, to be honest, because a lot of these guys they're very successful and they're leaders in the industry, and I don't think they're really short of a buck or two anyway. But I'm not really someone who's very sort of obsessive and really into my FUE. When I researched both procedures, but for me personally, from looking at the forums and meeting patients, etc., I just felt strip was the best all-round procedure, and in my case in particular, that's why I went with that. But I'm not saying that FUE is inferior to it, but I just felt, for me personally, it was the right decision. But some of these guys who are doing their research, I mean, they are really, really clued up on devices and what different tools the surgeons are using, and
but I can tell you this, not trying to cut you off, I can tell you this, the guys that are out there who are spending so much time in the forums, who are doing their research and are out there trying to, in their minds, really help guide people. A lot of these guys, there is a certain level of paranoia, which in a sense, if they've been harmed, is reasonable. It's definitely reasonable. But I will tell you that, and you talked about you choosing to have strip over FUE, again, to go back to my conversation with Bob Bernstein this week, he told me that he basically gets twice as much for the artist, and he goes, it's not that difficult. It's easy to use. He understands how to use it well. He will still recommend strip for a majority of his patients, not because it's easier for him, because it's not at this point. He makes less money doing it too. He really believes and again, I'm going to get a lot of shit for this. I'm not saying this, but this is what Bob Bernstein said. He still believes it's the gold standard, and I have to tell you that just about every doctor who is, even some of the guys that have converted over to FUE in a big way, behind the scenes, they will tell me that there's no you get more bang for your buck. You get a better overall hair transplant with follicular unit transplantation. Now, I'm not saying that. I'm telling you what the experts are saying. It's not because it's easier for them. They will make more money doing FUE. They have the staffs now. They've changed and accommodated the ability to do larger session FUEs and change the infrastructure of their practice. They've already spent the money and the time to do this. So with that said, even though they're making more money with FUE, behind the scenes, the talk is you're still seeing more consistent, more wow results with FUT. And I think most people in the industry understand that and agree with it, but it's hard to convince the consumer that that's the case. What do you think about that, Specs?
Oh, wow. I mean, I personally feel, and I get a lot of stick online for giving my opinion on FUE. Now, I've had 4 strips, 6 FUEs, I've had both procedures. I think both have their place. I think FUE is a fantastic procedure in the right hands. And the likes of, you've just mentioned Dr. Ron Shapiro, who is categorically one of the ultimate best in the world. You've got beg your pardon, Dr. Bernstein as well, who are categorically the best in the world at these techniques. And I think it's great that doctors personally are able to offer both these kind of methods, and they're both experimenting, always trying to evolve their practices with different types of kind of FUE tools. But I think both of them would always kind of educate the patient and make them aware, as all ethical surgeons would. I mean, Dr. Feller had a patient recently who was prepared to offer him kind of like $20 a graft to do FUE, and he was like, "No way, you are a strip candidate. Go to somebody else. It's not about the money, And that happens quite regularly. And I think personally, for me, FUE, great technique. It all depends on the individual, their requirements. It's vital they get educated and they understand that FUE has its limitations. However, there are surgeons that are dedicating to solely FUE. There are surgeons that are doing larger FUE sessions, and we're seeing that FUE mega sessions are getting potentially a little bit more successful, a little bit more consistent. However, I think it's always still going to have its place, and strip as a comparison technique will always be a gold standard. However, it depends on the individual's requirements. There is no, and just to use a quick kind of comparison, it's like if you're a Norwood 5, Norwood 6, right? Going in via FUE, you are going to be left wanting. If you're a Norwood 3, you'll probably be able to get there in a couple of procedures, 2 or 3 procedures. If you take your time with it, do smaller procedures, or go with a very experienced surgeon. For instance, with Chris, he'd already had previous surgery, and for him, I think he did a great deal of research. He'd already had a strip surgery, he had an FUE surgery, and he knew that, for me, I want one more surgery. I don't want to be left wanting again. And he's a classic example. Went in via strip, got repaired, got it all resolved. And I think if it had gone in via FUE, as a comparison numbers, he would have still been left wanting. It's a case-by-case basis, and it's up to the individual to do their research. Meet patients that have similar loss patterns in terms of surface area, in terms of hair characteristic, and get a feel for, let's say, a 2,500 strip and a 2,500 FUE. Get a good feel for them, because they do differ, in my honest opinion. They differ in terms of the end result.
And listen, I think those are important points. And I also want to bring out that there are those on the message forums who really, especially the young guys who don't know anything about the industry, who don't really know much about us, who really somehow believe that there is this fear of me just solely promoting FUE because I am somehow going to lose my income. I think what's important that people know is, I mean, this is not to sound obnoxious, but I haven't had to worry about that aspect of my life for quite a long time. So, I mean, if I decided to, move on from this, or move on from the IHRS or whatever it is, it really wouldn't affect me one iota. My goal is to provide people with the safest place to kind of choose their physicians and to learn about these techniques. And I also think it's important to know, and I've repeated myself on this, but I actually, you're talking about FUE basically being out there since 2002. And I was contacted by Ray Woods in 1999 to basically present this to North America because he wasn't getting any traction, and I did. And I was a staunch advocate of, at the time, the Woods technique, because I believed that it was going to be a great part of the evolution of this field. And I was the one who sat down, spoke to Bob Bernstein, spoke to Bill Rassman, who at one point actually said that it was all bullshit, it couldn't work. And then they ended up writing the first paper. But, to kind of convince them that this is something that needed to be looked at and something that needed to be, out there. John Cole, exactly the same thing. He was actually a little bit more open-minded than Rassman initially, and Alan Bauman, and your guy Alan Feller. They all thought it was hocus pocus, but they kind of sensed that I really believed in it. And then once I was able to show them that, look at these results, they all decided to figure out how to make it happen, and they did. And with that said, all that said, as staunch of an advocate as I am, I still believe that it is not the end-all, be-all in hair transplant procedures. I still believe that, like Spex says, it really is a case-by-case basis, but the best results that I've ever seen, as far as the most bang for your buck, a really wow, grateful head of hair, the guys who seem to be the happiest in the long run, seem to be the guys that either just had strip, a really good strip, or a combination of both techniques. And that is risky to say now because you get so much shit online because people are thinking that strip is so outdated, it's butchery, whatever it is. It's cosmetic surgery. Any cosmetic surgery that you have to understand that you're going to be left with some sort of a scar. Whether it's, a confluence of scarring from FUE, or if it's a lateral scar, a linear scar, I should say, from a strip procedure. If you decide to get a facelift one day, or your eyes done, these incisions are being made. Maybe they're smaller incisions as far as surface area, but it's always a risk. You have to be cut, and we would all love for any cosmetic surgery to be as minimally invasive as possible. So that's what I'm shooting for when in my own case. If I decide to have a hair transplant, there's a good chance that I would start off with FUE. I don't know, because I don't need that much hair to be moved, or maybe I would do a strip first. But in the end, if I needed a lot of hair, it would be a combination of both procedures, and that's an unpopular stance to take now. And that, Specs. It's an unpopular stance to take, but it's the reality. It's the best advice that I can give anybody.
I know it is hard. It is hard because you kind of to be in a position to be able to kind of address a lot of people and to be popular in terms of people looking to you for advice, it is difficult, and sometimes I'm getting even more guarded with my opinion. However, I just want to it's FUE is, I'm very, very pro FUE, very pro. I've had both techniques, I feel it's so important for guys coming into it that they just understand FUE. If you only want FUE because it is less invasive, it's completely understandable. But just be aware. Say again, sorry?
It makes sense. It makes sense that you want to go for the least invasive procedure possible. I totally get that, and I agree with that, man. You know what the least invasive procedure is? Don't even have a fucking hair transplant. That's what I tell people. If you don't want to have any risk, don't go for surgery.
It's just a case of making sure that people don't get the information and are fully aware of all the limitations of surgery, and they can do their own due diligence, do their own research, and as I said before, meet patients. If you only want FUE, meet only FUE patients, or even compare with strip patients, compare with the strip scars. But it is all, it's so patient by patient basis. You could look at 10 strip scars. It's not necessarily how yours is going to end up. And likewise with FUE scarring, likewise with with FUE yield. There's no guarantees with surgery. It isn't an exact science. And it's just so important that people try to get educated. And that's why I try and just make people, pull the reins in. If you're going to go FUE, go in small, get a good feel for it, get a really good trusted doctor, and just to kind of counteract what I've said as well, I have been seeing some, good FUE, larger size sessions coming out at various different clinics. So the technique is not evolving. It is evolving. Doctors are getting more experience. They're understanding it better. But I think they're all understanding that it very much is very dependent on the patient as well. And just really, really get empowered with the knowledge that.
You know what I'm seeing though. You just mentioned you're seeing better and better procedures coming out of different clinics. I'm actually seeing worse procedures coming out of different clinics, because we are basically the clearinghouse for complaints, throughout the world, through the American Hair Loss Association, the Bald Truth, and the IHRS. And what I'm seeing is that because it's such great consumer demand that for FUE, that more and more hair transplant surgeons are picking up on it, or more and more businessmen who are opening up hair transplant clinics are picking up on it. And the results are, in some cases, disastrous, and in other cases are kind of marginal. They're not bad, but we have no idea how much damage was done to the grafts, to the precious donor area. And I'm seeing a lot of shit coming out of Europe. I mean, really, really bad work. I'm seeing stuff coming out of Turkey, stuff that is just, it's beyond questionable, because guys are traveling, they're looking for the cheapest FUE prices, and they really believe that, what's the worst that can happen? This is a non-invasive procedure. You know what the worst that can happen is? That you lose your precious donor area, period. And, I want to move on to something else what I think is interesting now that we have Chris on, who's such he's not only well known on the message forums, he's really a guy that spends a lot of time, does a lot of research, and kind of has his finger on the pulse of what's happening on the forums. I want to talk about I want to know what do you think about what's happening with Cohen Go? I have my
myself. You mean
you yourself as a consumer? From what you've been able to glean and read without the inside information that I might have, what do you think about what's being put out there about Cohen Go's HST procedure?
Well, if I'm honest, out of all the sections on the Bold Truth, it's probably one of the sections that I actually read the least, and I'm sort of waiting to see how it progresses in time. But what I would say is that from what I've seen, he does very small procedures, and basically the whole selling point is around the generation of the donor supply. Now, if it doesn't really generate, as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing there, because the results that he's actually put out there, he's reasonably conservative, but I haven't really been wowed by anything at all. Now,
right.
If someone said to me, they said, look, I want to regain my hair, I want it to be aesthetically good as possible, well, I would say to them, look, well, I think there's guys out there who, some of the strip surgeons, some of the FUE surgeons, that in a year with a good size transplant, that you could literally transform your hair and you'll be very, very happy. It could be life changing. But with Cohen Go at the moment, I don't really see that. All I see is it seems to be like a little procedure, then wait a year, then another procedure, a little procedure, then wait a year. And if there's a guy, people talk about a guy going from a Nord 6 to Nord 1. Well, at the rate in which he does transplants, that is going to take forever. You're looking at like 8 years before you're going to get the sort of bang for buck you get from a larger session from, say, a Hassan or Wong at the moment. But if it does really regenerate, I'm not saying it does or it doesn't, I don't know yet. But if it does, then there definitely is something there.
Well, and I think that's a very reasonable assessment of what's going on. This is what I see that's going on. Now, first of all, I do have a relationship with Dr. Go. He has asked us, to maybe moderate what's being said about his procedure, and some of the people that are really these staunch online advocates of the procedure kind of, look closely at what's happening and maybe clean things up a little bit, because he's kind of upset and concerned about, some of the guys and the way they're out there, and who they are, who are really just crazy over what's going on with Go, and they will not take no for an answer, meaning that anyone who questions the Go technique, whatever it is, they can't have a civil conversation. I was actually just in a conversation recently with Cohen, and a little while back, but relatively recently, and he actually believes that what's being done online could potentially harm the evolution of his technique, and I don't disagree with that. He believes in what he's doing. He seems to be sincere in what he's doing, and I've told him I just haven't seen the results, and there hasn't been any real statistics or real powerful data showing the regeneration that he's claiming. There have been small amounts of data and small studies done. We also know, and he agrees with this, that if you just transect the hair, hair is going to grow. And during the interview the last interview I had with him, he agreed with that. Now, but what he does say is that he is able to remove a 3-hair graft, implant that graft, and the part of the tissue that creates the 3-hair graft, implant that, and that will grow 3 hairs, and then you will regenerate 3 hairs in the back. We still haven't been able to see that. No matter what's being done online by laymen, no matter what's being shown and circles being drawn and dots being connected and all that stuff, that isn't true clinical data. So it's really difficult. As hopeful as I am that this technique works, we just don't have the data. Now, I'm going to get a lot of shit for saying that, but there's also a reason why we create a section for Dr. Go, because we know that the interest is there. So we wanted to have this and allow this free flow of information about his technique. Unfortunately, it gets out of control because a lot of the guys are involved with the Go camps, and they don't seem to be the most reasonable people. So I think that that kind of litters the forum. It causes a lot of confusion, and maybe one of the reasons why it's one of the least read threads, and especially by someone like you who is so familiar with the forums, is because we're not really seeing great data. We're not really seeing anything truly interesting. What we're seeing is it's the battle between Go's technique and other techniques, and that's not the way it should be. I do think that if the forum guys out there who are watching this and who are listening to the broadcast now can kind of like pull back a little bit and just kind of let nature take its course as far as the information being put out there reasonably, then maybe we'll get a better idea if this works or not. I do agree with your point about, the work is okay. It's clean, for what he's presenting, but there's not a significant change in these patients that I'm seeing. I would be personally bummed if I were to go in and, think that I'm going to get a significant change to my appearance with a hair transplant or HST procedure, and then come away with what I would consider to be just kind of like moderate to a mediocre change in some cases. So I guess it's up to the consumer. Do they want to entrust their time, their money, their appearance with this procedure? And at this point, I think you're right. If you really want to get the most bang for your buck, the most aesthetics, the more hair on your head, then at this stage, at least, HST isn't the way to go. What do you think about that, Spex?
I've just said a really interesting listening to you both talk about it. You know what? I really am just waiting, as Chris is. I can't really say I've come across a great deal of patients. I know there's a great deal of interest generated around it, but the jury's still out, in my opinion, with regards to the technique and the regeneration of the donor supply. You know what? If it bloody worked, we would see the forum would be littered with examples, clear, documented, precise, examples, countless numbers of them. There aren't.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Go on, mate. Go for it.
Well, and that's why I always bring up the fact that I was a staunch advocate and kind of brought FUE to the attention, or the Woods technique to the attention of North America. At the time, guys, especially young guys, when I did this, guys who believe that I'm sort of fearful of the Go technique. At the time, I was making plenty of money with the IHRS and everything else that I was doing. And, if I was concerned about rocking the boat, I never would have pushed the FUE technique. I never would have gotten into the hands of the guys that were just staunch strip advocates. This is all that they had. They believed that this was the gold standard no matter what. There could be no further evolution. I would have not gotten it out there because I understand that what the consumer pressure and the financial pressure that can be imposed on an industry just by putting this out there and talking about it on my radio show. I know what that could do to these physicians' practices if there were a bunch of guys who decided, you know what, this is the way to go, and we're going to go out there and we're going to try to destroy the strip technique. I didn't care about that. I didn't care. My goal was to get the best technique to the masses, and I really focused on that, along with some other guys. I have to give Pharaoh Mann his props in this respect for really kind of turning over his forum at the time to Ray Woods and to really promoting FUE, because I think that was provide a strong, visible consumer pressure to the industry. So I always give him his props for that. Same goes with Dr. Go. I allowed a section on my forum to be put out there so that people can talk about, and Dr. Go doesn't pay me anything for this, so people can talk about his technique so that if in fact this valid technique, I wanted to kind of unfold in front of the public eye. I wanted to unfold through our resources. But I can tell you this, if I was convinced that this technique was the end-all be-all and what Dr. Go claims, if I was truly convinced, everyone in the IHRS would be doing it. There's no doubt.
You'd be having it done. You'd have had it done.
I would have not, and I wouldn't worry about shock loss because it's really minimally invasive. I would have just had my crown filled in and started doing small sessions. He has invited me out to the Netherlands. He would perform the surgery himself on me. So people have to understand that, my reservations have nothing to do with, anything financial. It doesn't, none of that. I don't give a shit about any of that. I would make a hell of a lot more money in the end, and so would all the doctors. If this technique works, then it's the holy grail. And I hope that it does at some point. But at this stage, I wouldn't recommend someone in my personal life having it. No way. And I think that's the bottom line. And I think you're probably, obviously, you feel the same way, Specs.
I really do. I mean, there's so many guys. I mean, the topics that I have read, and like I say, I don't waste time is not the right word. I don't spend my limited amount of time reading a great deal about it. But what I have read when I have proofread over it is all these young guys are so dead set on it that they hope. Essentially, they're living on the hope that there is going to be.
Sad.
Say again?
It's sad, really,
Yeah,
it's
it is sad. It is sad.
I question, because I can't even imagine how much traffic and how many, patients have found out about Go through our resources. And again, Dr. Go he's not part of our organization. I do not accept advertising of any kind from him. So I'm kind of always like hyper concerned about getting this information out to the public or allowing it to unfold on our resources, because the truth is there are people who are finding it who are going to have the procedure based on the conversations that are happening on our message forum. And I feel uncomfortable about that to some extent, but I also think it's unfair to stifle that information if it's a conversation that people want to have. So I'm kind of torn in being in the position that I'm in.
And my gosh, it's a conversation that they do have as well, isn't it? I mean, because all the various topics that are spoken about, Dr. Go, God, they go on for like 50 pages. It's like unbelievable. I've never known anything quite like it.
That's
and
amazing.
that's why I think people like Chris has mentioned, who's called in, and we just haven't got the time to read through it, because any layman that comes in generally doesn't read past page 2 or page 3 of any topic,
Right.
unless they've got a great deal of free time on their hands, or they are obsessed via that particular area of discussion, which are few and far between. And what you'll probably end up finding is there's two people just bloody having it out with their difference in opinion. And it's certainly very interesting that you do house a topic on your forum with regards to the technique. And you know what? I would be the biggest advocate if I felt it was, kosher and that there was some proof behind it. But as right now, it's great that doctors are experimenting. It's great that doctors are trying to, take this industry to the next level of providing us an unlimited amount of donor supply, i.e., regenerating donor supply. Unbelievable, it's the holy grail. And I think any doctor that does end up perfecting that or performing that technique, and it is completely and 100% a legitimate and actually is what it says on the tin. It's just a license to print money. It's a biscuit boat with gravy wheels, isn't it? They would have a queue out the door 20 miles long from every nationality in the world. It would just be unbelievable.
And that's well said. And I will tell you this, and I've even told Dr. Go this: if he's able to prove this to me, I would set him up here in the United States, if possible. If he's claiming that the agents that are in his holding solution, basically the fertilizer he calls it, are some of the agents are not approved here in the U.S. We can set them up offshore. I have the capacity to do something like that. If I believed it was something that was going to change the world, why wouldn't I want to be there first? I mean, you're talking about the license to print money. I mean, with our resources, this broadcast, the ability and the eyeballs and the ears that we have, I mean, holy cow. I mean, it would set us up for life. I would love to do something like that. But you know what? I'm not doing it for a reason. And I also explained that to some of his colleagues and some of the guys that I've spoken to in the industry about this. So, I just think that everyone's got to kind of calm down that's online and who really believes that this is going to destroy the hair transplant industry, as we know it. I don't look at it that way. If it's something great, I don't think it's going to destroy the hair transplant industry. I think it's going to evolve the hair transplant industry.
Oh, completely.
And we all want that for sure. Listen, Chris, thank you so much for the call. You know what? We kept you on for an hour because you're such a great caller. And, what I like to do, is obviously have you on more often. And maybe we can kind of create some sort of a segment. And I think that Spex talked about this as well, where, we just, you are such an expert as far as what's happening on the forums. You can kind of bring that to us because, honestly, I don't have the time to read all this shit.
Yeah, that sounds brilliant.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. So we'll talk about that. Listen, Chris, and you go by Chris Dav, or is it Chris Dave?
Yeah, Chris Dav. My name's Chris Davies, but my profile is just Chris Dav.
All right. Well, listen, man. Thank you so much for the call. We're going to take a break, and then we'll have some time to take some other calls. The phone number, of course, is 0203 3724-683. That's 02. I say zero again. Sorry. 0203 3724-683. You're listening to The Bald Truth UK. I'm Spencer Kobren, along with Spencer Stevenson in our studios in London. We'll be right back after this brief message. Stay with us.
He's an international best-selling author, a contributing editor for Consumer Digest magazine, and the host of the longest-running reality radio show for men. I'd say he's the man.
And the truth shall set you free!
It's Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth. Truth.
I don't need you to be by my side.
Hey guys, welcome back. Phone number is 0203-3724-683. That's our local UK line at 0203-3724-683. You are listening to and watching The Bald Truth UK. It's great to be here. We broadcast the show every Sunday. Well, not every Sunday now, but every other Sunday, live. And it's 8 p.m. GMT time. And of course, if you are watching or listening here in the U.S., that's 12 noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time. And it's great to do the show. I'm glad we're back on the air. We were able to do only one live broadcast since we launched on January because of some technical issues, and we've sorted them out. We have a great backup. Luckily, Andrew Zarian in our studio in New York, guys from Queens, is taking our Skype feed and sending it out to the world. Thanks, Andrew, for being there for us today. I know it's Super Bowl Sunday. I have a party to get to. There's going to be some drinking. I don't know if it's going to get ugly or not, but I know I'm going to have my KFC with me, so I'm excited about that. And I've been talking with Spex, and Chris Dobb actually called in from the forum world, talking about some of the stuff that's going on online, a lot of the concerns that hair loss consumers have and patients have, and some of the staunch advocates of certain techniques. It's a unique world that we're in, guys. It's a unique world, and I think it's important that, especially the young guys who become so dogmatic about a certain technique or a subject or a potential treatment, to really understand that we've been in this for a long time. I mean, I've been obviously researching for a lot longer, but I mean, my first book was published in 1998. And that is the book that, initially exposed this industry for what it is. I have seen everything. And I promise you that if there was something out there that was really changing this field, evolving this field, making it a better place for you guys, it would be on the forefront of everything that I do. So if there's a specific surgical technique that you guys think is somehow being held back because of, the hair transplant mafia or whatever you guys call it online, I promise you that it is in our best interest, and mine particularly, to get these newer techniques that are working out to the masses. And that's what I've been concentrating on for the last 15 years. So I don't want you guys to be concerned about that. The conspiracy theories that are out there really need to kind of be quelled somehow, because, again, the truth of the matter is, and I believe this, and I've said this for a long time, the reason I do this is that we're working to kind of create a safer place for men and women dealing with hair loss, to get completely objective information. And frankly, we wouldn't be able to get this information out to you, or at least I wouldn't be, if I wasn't somehow involved in the industry. Money doesn't grow on trees. Having the ability to get yourself out there in the broad way that we are out there, it's not easy. And if it was, a lot of other guys would be doing it. A lot of the guys on the message forums who are banging their drum the loudest, they wouldn't be banging it on my message forum if they were able to do this on their own. And there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is we, here at the Bald Truth, wanted to create resources that would be palatable to the masses, that would be palatable to the mainstream media. And, we've been very fortunate over the years. And now with the new UK show, we're already getting a lot of attention. And it's amazing how fast, we've only done one live show. It's amazing how fast we're already getting the press. I wanted to talk about this, Spex. You were recently interviewed for BBC4. And I guess they're doing an hour-long segment or a half-hour-long segment on the hair loss world, the hair loss industry. And actually, I'm going to be interviewed on Monday. And it's amazing. The show just started, and we're already going to be on the BBC.
Yeah, it's a bit BBC Radio 4 contacted you, didn't they, about a month ago? A gentleman over there who does very interesting documentaries on various different topics, and he kindly emailed you with regards to wanting to put something together, and you kind of put him in touch with me, and it was a very, very interesting kind of chat we had, and kind of enlightening him on the industry in general. And he's actually a Norwood 6. He found it fascinating with regards to the information that is out there, and he's been researching.
It's actually surprising, though, that he has been researching, and once he spoke to us, he spoke to me for a brief pre-interview, and he spoke to you. He was shocked. And this is a learned man. This is an educated guy, an older guy who's been dealing with this for a long time. And no matter what's out there online, people are still lost. They can't understand. They're trying to decipher all the bullshit that's out there. And I think he was pretty amazed at the reality of this industry and what's coming down the
He really was. I mean, genuinely, I met with him and he looked up at my close, really, really close and personally, and he came into it, I think, a little bit kind of tongue in cheek. He was expecting to kind of, it all to be a little bit kind of, not for me, but I'll generally scratch the surface on this. However, he was like intrigued. He was asking questions that only a genuine, interested potential patient would. I think what our conversation and what he's learned from actually looking at various results is, my lord, something can actually be done here. And he was asking me about his donor supply and what he could potentially achieve. And he is a very learned man, a very, very well educated guy. And he was just blown away by it. He'd obviously just shelved. I'm not saying that he's going to go and have something done. He just found it incredibly fascinating. And what this gentleman is doing is putting it a 30-minute documentary piece together. It's going out in March on hair loss and hair restoration, and I'm really hoping that given the information that I've given to him, I know he's interviewing you. Is it next week that he'll put together a piece that can really educate a lot of listeners, because it's BBC Radio 4. It's a major channel over here of a number of listeners. And as you know, Spence, it's very rare that when a piece goes out on the radio or via any media, it's rarely accurate. It's rarely it really truly educates an individual with regards to what is actually current, what is achievable, what can be, what is available to hair loss sufferers now, and it'll be interesting to see what this gentleman puts together. I know he's actually trying to get hold of other people as well. I know he's listened to various shows. He obviously found you via your show. And he's certainly going to put together a piece that will be very educational, and it'd be interesting to see how your interview goes with him. It's a shame, given the interest this gentleman has shown in interviewing the likes of yourself and me, that it's not longer than half an hour, because I really feel that he could put a great piece of information together that's going to educate a lot of people. But who knows, he may do something else, given the time scale that he's got, the limited time scale he's got.
In the world of mainstream media, to have an entire half an hour, especially on radio, that is dedicated to something that would probably be, from what I'm assuming, just commercial free, it's amazing, especially if it's not done in, like you said, in the tongue-in-cheek fashion. When I first spoke to him, I really think that he had a slightly different approach. And then he really took to the forums, and he saw the pain and the angst and everything that was going on, and the kind of like bro science, and we discussed that goes on in the message forums, and just the intense interest and the intense passion that people, especially the younger guys who are dealing with this issue, are expressing, online and showing and revealing online. He definitely changed his tune, and you got to understand, he is a hair loss sufferer, but he had the whole British stiff upper lip thing about it when he first got on the phone with me. It was almost as though, well, yeah, I'm a sufferer too, but I'm not really. He didn't even call himself a sufferer until we started to talk about it more. But it was though it bothered him initially, but he got over it. But as you kind of peel back those layers, it doesn't matter if he's 50 years old or something, however old he is. It's still bothering him. He was admitting it after he realized that he could open up to us and open up to me. I found it, the initial conversation I found fascinating. And I think it kind of, I'm not going to say it was a complete 180, but he definitely turned the corner, so to speak, on what is going to be presented. And I will tell you this. You said that most stuff is out there that is not completely accurate. I've never seen a completely accurate piece except for one piece that was written in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. This is about 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And the reporter or the writer was so impressed at our resources and what I was telling her that she completely changed the tone of the piece and focused on the bald truth and the reality of everything. I've never seen such a more accurate piece on hair loss ever. And this is a big paper. Obviously, it's like the New York Times in Atlanta, but it was still just one article out of I must have been in, I don't know, 400 or more, and I'm not even exaggerating. It could be more than that over the years. This is the only one that was completely accurate. So I'm hoping that this guy kind of gets a really good sense of what we're doing through the broadcast and everything, and just puts out something that is really powerful that can then be redistributed online in perpetuity, so that the entire world can listen to this.
Completely, and he's I think what has happened here with him, and I hope, and I mean, we're yet to see what he produces, but I think exactly that. Not that he's done a 180, but I think he came into it kind of with kind of very limited expectations of what the industry is about and what can be achieved. And I think I saw it in himself when he was interviewing me. He found it fascinating. He was like, my gosh, so that's how they do it. I just didn't understand that was even viable, or that was even possible. And it will be really fascinating to see what he does put together. And let's just hope. But like other things, there's various different articles that are going out all the time, and there's various different kind of ways of getting the information out there. And I think that something as big as BBC Radio 4 that has so many listeners, it's going to be important that hopefully he does get it right, despite my opinion and yours of how we feel that he's got it, or he's getting there with it, and he understands that, as various individuals on whatever level of hair loss, whether they can chalk it up early or not, that they'd rather have hair than not have hair. And if with accurate information, they can understand how to go about, stopping hair loss, preventing hair loss, and restoring hair, the most efficient, effective, natural way possible, then it's important to get that information out there. And I think he's kind of, possibly even realizing, gosh, if this had been available to me then, would I have done it? And possibly so. And I really enjoyed my interview with him. He really took a genuine interest in, I feel, wanting to really get an accurate educational piece out there. And I know he's been trying to hunt down a few people on the forums who he's identifying with, and wants to hear their story as well, because it's going to differ from yours and mine, and it's important to get a variety of different individuals with different.
He actually did write us about being able to PM people on the message forum. The only issue that I have with that is the forum for me is really a place where people can, have a sense of anonymity, talk about this issue without being, solicited, to be interviewed or to public in any way. So, that was my concern initially. I think it's probably best if there are guys, forum members out there who would love to be a part of it. That's great, who want to be a part of it. But I think really it's really up to us to contact them directly about that, as opposed to having someone from the media solicit them.
No, completely. I completely agree. And I mentioned to the gentleman that I would certainly get in contact with the guys that he was interested in speaking to, and it's up to them to make the decision if they want to, because as we know, Spence, it's a very personal thing, and not everybody. It's all well and good being anonymous online via a pseudonym, but very few people, regardless, even if it's via radio, don't want to publicly talk about it, be interviewed about it. It's a very private thing. It's something that I personally dealt with anonymously for 10 years, and only told my mother, my sister, and my wife that I had any issue with hair loss. I get it. I understand it completely. Somebody like you.
I'm the only idiot that tells the world.
Yeah. Not an idiot, mate. You obviously had the balls, Yeah. But I'll tell you this, Spence. I've just been away on a boys' ski trip. We do it every year, okay? And there's 8 of us. 6 of them are Norwood 6s, okay? I've just been away skiing with them for the week. Can you imagine the amount of banter that I've had laid at my doorstep this week? It's been it's been brilliant.
And these are guys in your age group, or younger or older? around.
Like 5 years either side, you know.
Yeah.
But it was just refreshing for me, and it's really, I think the point I'm going to make here is it's liberating, really, to be able to just talk about it, and for them to throw me questions. And there's always, you know, there's a very alpha male environment. They're all rugby guys, you know. But the fact of the matter is, they were, despite the banter, they genuinely kind of understood why I would want to do it. You know, they understood why it kind of affects you in the way that it does. And, you know, they were genuinely interested in wanting to know more about it. Not personally, just they were asking questions. They found it fascinating. A lot of them have chalked it up, you know, they've shaved down, they've dealt with it. But it was just really, I suppose for me, it was a breath of fresh air to actually be able to talk about it and not keep it quiet and not have to, you know, be self-conscious of every hair loss comment and every comment that anybody mentioned about losing your hair or when did you lose your hair. Because believe it or not, they'd all talked about hair loss numerous times before, but they wouldn't have realized it. I picked up on everything they said about hair loss over the last several years of being around them. But it was just liberating for me.
You're in your own cocoon, and you've been able to successfully deal with it, and they had no idea what was going on. I mean, listen, when people see you, like I have the hairspray and I comb it to the side to kind of cover things up. At this stage in your life, you don't have to do that. So you have the youthful hairstyle that you're able to pull off, and so when people look at you, they have no clue that there's anything going on. And you've actually been through so much more than I have as far as your treatments and your having so many surgeries. So it's got to be a total shock for your friends or for your mates, as you guys say over there. And I mean, when I first met you, I was just like, dude, I mean, your hair was cut really short. I was like, I would love to be able to cut my hair that short. But if I cut my hair that short, then you would see the thinness and all that stuff. So you are an example of life after hair loss and really being able to repair the genetic curse that unfortunately that so many guys are born with. Hey, listen, why don't we take a phone call and then we could maybe get back to the BBC stuff. Let me give out the phone number. It's 0203. I'm sorry. I'm going to get this right eventually. It's 0203 372 683. Give us a call here. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the Ball Truth. Who's this?
Hey, Spencer. This is Vic from DC.
Hey, Vic, man. What's happening?
Hey, not much, man. I know you leave the line open for UK callers, but I thought I'd just...
dude, this is worldwide, man, so you're welcome to call in.
Oh, I appreciate that. How are you doing, Specs?
Hey, I'm good, buddy. Great to hear from you. How's it happening over there? Are you okay?
We're all okay. You know, today's Super Bowl day, so I thought, what a great way to have Sunday. You got the Ball Truth UK, and then you have the Super Bowl. It's pretty good Sunday.
It's not a bad Sunday.
Two great shows.
And I'm gonna sit back and enjoy myself and relax today a little bit with some friends.
Absolutely. Specs, I had a question for you. I know that you're a consultant for Dr. Feller, and does Dr. Feller have any views on beard hair, and does he do any? Because from everything I've read on the IAHRS website and everything, he just seems like a great FUE surgeon. I just wondering if he does ever consider doing beard hair.
Mate, it's a common question that I get asked. Obviously, Dr. Feller's very experienced with FUE. However, he's certainly not very kind of pro beard hair. Okay, he's not pro beard hair. I know he experimented with it several years ago. I think he found that it wasn't really as viable an option to go down, and he wasn't prepared to kind of charge people for doing it. So to answer your question, I think he doesn't offer it. No, he certainly, I think, experimented with it, and he just didn't feel that it was going to be something that he would be prepared to offer to patients when there are other very kind of viable means of donor supply around the back of the head. I think he would love it to be a more viable option, and I think knowing Dr. Feller and how driven he is with regards to just increasing patients' options and making as many helping patients in any which way that he can. As there are a lot of other doctors there that have also that offer strip and FUE. They generally don't kind of offer beard hair. Now in Europe, there's a couple of surgeons in particular that are now experimenting, or not experimenting. That's unfair. They're performing beard hair in particular.
Is a guy that is getting some really significant results. I mean, I think they're noteworthy results with beard hair. So,
yeah, and Dr. Ferraduni, I believe, does beard hair and body hair. I think it's something, mate, that's obviously with regards to your situation. Is it because you've got a limited donor supply, and is it something that you're potentially looking at as a viable source of donor hair, or is it a personal, obviously, towards your own current situation?
Yes, you're right, Spex. Well, I'm already like pretty much Norwood 6, and it's not good. I just donor thins already. My donor starting to thin, so my beard is the only real thick source of donor hair, in my opinion. And I've read that a lot of people don't really trust chest hair too much, so somehow.
Well, let me tell you, Vic. Let me tell you this, mate. Okay, if you're high on the Norwood scale, okay, and you're thinking of going in via beard hair, just at the end of the day, mate, you're such a limited supply of beard hair anyway. It's beard hair. It's not going to. It doesn't take on the same characteristic as head hair. It's a lot coarser. So to the degree of how natural it would look, I think you'd probably be in a scenario if you were to do that and even had an abundant supply of beard hair. Let's just forget for the matter, it's you've only got a limited amount. If you had loads, how natural would that look? So you just got to be careful, mate, of potentially opening up Pandora's box there, because I think beard hair is great as a last resort, as a donor supply for individuals who have exhausted existing scalp hair donor supply, and generally repair patients I've seen good success. EJ, a guy online who went to Basanga, is having multiple beard hair procedures into an old strip scar or strip scars, and he's seeing great success. I think that's the ideal candidate. He's had multiple surgeries over the last 2 decades. The poor guy has been put through the mill. He has no other form of resource of donor supply other than beard hair. So I think that's the kind of classic scenario where I would personally advocate beard hair on an individual such as yourself, who is high on the Norwood scale, with not a great donor supply. It's kind of like, for me personally, mate, I just wouldn't even recommend anybody venture down hair restoration via body hair, because it's just not going to look natural, in my personal opinion. Okay. Do you understand what I mean there?
Yeah, and Vic, and I'll let you answer Specs in a sec, but I have to agree, especially if you're considering this to be your only source of donor, then you may be sorely disappointed, and maybe you're not going to be scarred, and it's going to look natural to some degree, but it's going to be you're only going to have so much to move. It will be relatively sparse. The hair will be slightly different. Well, that depends. From what I remember, you said you're dark skinned. Do you have kind of like Afrocentric hair? Or is it more Asian?
It's curly. It's Asian. It's kind of like, yeah, it's Asian curly hair.
Okay.
Spencer, I got to tell you that I'm going to be 100% completely honest with you. Every single day that goes by, I can't help but at least once check out the IAHRS page.
Right.
And part of me from inside just feels like this is it, because I got to move on with my life. And a part of me just feels like there's so many good doctors there. Dr. Feller, Dr. Bauman, Dr. Cole, all these people who are doing FUE. Strip is probably not for me because honestly, I cut my hair real short because I'm already so high on the Norwood scale, and my skin's dark, so it will show. So part of me feels like there's a reason that the IAHRS exists. It's to tell us who's doing great work. I feel like I just have to take a step and do it. And, the great thing about watching your show is that you're the person who's actually slowed me down. I would have jumped in the seat 2 years ago. But after 2 years of finally doing some due diligence, I feel like now I can put the entire weight on my own shoulders. So in case anything does go wrong, the only person I'll blame is myself. And I think that's the best thing your show has done for me. It's made me realize that ultimate responsibility is my own. So I think it's just time for me to. I've been like Spex and yourself and everyone who like us who've have had to. Spex is fully cured. Finasteride has saved your hair for 17 years, so you guys are okay. For me, I feel like I need to get a move on with my life, and so I have to do something. So for me, I feel like, either Feller or one of these really good doctors. And if they reject me, I have to accept that too. But I think it's time for me to.
I think that's. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think it's time for me to be on the other side of the table. I've been dealing with hair loss long enough. Now I feel like gotta have some happiness.
Well, I certainly understand your point, and I don't disagree with you. And I'm so glad that the program has been able to get you to the point where you understand and empower you to the point where you understand what the reality of the situation is. And I'm glad that you did wait, and I'm glad that you didn't go for a strip, especially if you are high in Norwood scale, having dark skin, possible complications from that, and not real. There's a whole host of reasons why I personally thought. Since you've been a regular caller for a while, that you probably shouldn't go that route. So I'm glad that you took our advice. I'm also, I think that you really articulated your concerns really well, and also the idea that it is your responsibility ultimately. And I'm glad that you kind of, people need to see that there's only so much that we can do. We try to guide you in the safest direction possible, but in the end, it's up to you to make that final decision. And if something does happen, God forbid, that it doesn't meet your expectations, all about it. You've been, given the information about the entire scope and possible pitfalls of hair transplantation. So I'm glad we were able to do our job with you. But
you did more than your job. The fact that you come on every week for 2 hours for free, and now you're coming on 2 hours Spex for free for the entire nation. That's like going to a psychologist and paying them a 2-hour session. It's crazy, and that's what you do. You're the psychologist for all of us. So you've done more than enough. I hope no one ever points their finger. I know there are people out there who say, "Oh, making money and this and that." Well, yeah, I hope they don't say that, because you know what? You've done more for us than
the regular guy. But Vic, can I ask you quickly, and I really appreciate what you said there, Vic, so you're thinking of taking this leap of faith. What is it that you're thinking of actually doing, mate? What is it that you're actually thinking of? Have I interpreted the conversation right there, that you're actually now thinking of pulling the trigger and actually having surgery performed? And if so, what is it that you're intending to do? Are you intending to actually go down the beard route?
I'm just Spex, that's a great question. It's like, I looked at videos on YouTube, and I know I shouldn't just jump to conclusions from that, but I see, like, for example, I see a person who was restored from a Norwood 7 using just body hair, and that kind of freaks me out because I know I can't just be like that'll work for me. But I feel like even if it was something where it was to somewhat frame the face using enough body hair, and even if they could pull 500 grafts from the back just to lead a little bit of somewhat natural hairline, and then behind that put some of the body hair, I think, and then if it leaves very minimal white dot scarring on the back, I'd still be able to clip it short and have kind of like just a buzz cut, and that would be what I'm thinking.
Well, mate, obviously, it's entirely your head, your process, your kind of decision to do this. However, understand this: surgery is, there are no guarantees with it, but with regards to the number of grafts that you're actually going to need to create any form of illusion of a shadow, effect, a frame of the face, coverage, you're talking thousands and thousands of grafts. Fact. Okay. Just be aware before you start throwing, money and time and energy and emotion at this, that you really understand. I mean, even have and this is no endorsement in any way, shape, or form. And go and see the surgeons now that are endorsing SMP, maybe scalp micropigmentation, temporary scalp micropigmentation. I had it done on my scalp. Hassan and Wong are offering it now, or they're going to, and Shapiro's are offering it. Maybe go and have a consultation with them with regards to that as an option. But surgery is permanent, and especially if you're experimenting with body hair. And mate, we've all seen these body hair results of Norwood 7 and repair guys being completely transformed. Mate, they are so the minority. I cannot tell you the number of people I have liaised with over the last 10 years who have just thrown good money after bad on body hair. Okay, you are only going to see the best result. There are hundreds on hundreds of results of body hair that have been unsuccessful. Fact. I mean, what's your opinion on that, Spence?
I agree, man. You know how I feel about it. You know how I feel about, I think, the videos that Vic is probably referring to. Those are the insane home runs. But from that particular doctor, and I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about. I have spoken to a guy that spent $100,000, 100 G's, and he had the money to spend, but on body hair transplants, because he believed, just like you do, Vic, that, he was in a position where he didn't have enough donor. He saw this stuff online, and he wanted to do, he thought there was hope for him. And, there may have been, but this particular scenario was not a good one. Placement of the hairline was horrendous. The angle of the grafts, the way that the wiriness of the hair itself. When you see somebody in person, it can look, depending on how the video is taken, a lot different than a video. Hair can be styled specifically. Products can be used on video. There are all kinds of ways to make things and make the situation look better. I have never seen a full body hair transplant, especially what you're considering a full restoration or even a partial restoration with a lot of grafts. I've never seen it look 100% natural.
No, and also, if your goal, sorry to interrupt you there, if your goal, Vic, is to keep it short, then you need even more grafts to make it look natural. The whole hair restoration is the art of illusion, okay? My hair at the front here looks as thick as the hair at the sides, but it's actually half the density, okay? But if I were to really, really cut my hair short, you would clearly see how thin it is in comparison to other parts of my head. It's only because I grow it out to a certain length. It's what Joe Tronick is a big advocate of, the sweet spot of getting your hair at a particular length. I honestly, it's my humble opinion, mate, is you've just got to understand that you're going to need a lot of grafts to make a body hair result look I don't think it could be natural, and that's my honest opinion, Vic. And I'm so sorry for to give you that and potentially kind of upset you in any way, shape, or form, or it's just my I wouldn't want to see you in a situation, believe it or not, which would be worse than the situation that you are in now, physically and emotionally, because I see it all the time.
You don't have to be sorry. You don't have to be sorry at all. What you're saying is the truth. And you know what? It's really weird because within the last 2 minutes, I feel like your and Spencer's talking to you has relieved so much tension inside of me that I feel like that's the reason I call the show. It's like I can't talk to anyone outside of Spencer Kobren about this stuff. No one understands. And now you, because you're on the Sunday show. So I feel so much relief just talking to you guys. It's amazing. And you know what? It's really cheered me up from talking to you all. And maybe what I have to do is step back, maybe just go in for a friendly consultation, see what they say, but not take any steps. And I'm going to try to improve the other areas of my life. Maybe I'm just going to start hitting the gym and
I'm telling you, man, get jacked. Do what you can. You're how old are you now?
I'm 28, man.
I mean, you're 28 years old. You're in the prime of your life. In a year from now, if you hit the gym, you could be a different person. And just focus on the positive. Focus on what you can do to improve your life. And we may be at a point where you're going to be able to benefit from some of the stuff that's coming down the pike. And you will be able to live a life with more hair or a full head of hair one day. But to grasp at straws, to, really take a risk on a procedure that, to me, is still, really should be reserved for the worst of the worst scenarios, it would be a bad idea, man. You would be calling the program in a much worse state of mind, and that's what I really believe. So I'm glad that we're able to help you, man. I'm glad that
you've helped. Thank you for the call, Spencer. I just want to say you and Spex are both absolute therapy. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you guys have a great Sunday. And I hope no one ever criticizes you guys. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, Vic. Listen, go Ravens, right?
No, you live in California, so
I do, but I did live in Maryland for a while, and my little nephew is a huge Ravens fan, so I'm definitely going that direction.
Go Ravens! All right,
man.
Guys have a good one.
All right, take care.
Cheers, Vic.
Bye.
Well, listen, I mean, it's amazing what you can do in a 4-minute conversation. Or a 10-minute conversation, whatever it is. I mean, because I'm glad that, listen, I think you gave the kid really good advice, for sure, man. It's really, it's compelling information that you're able to provide. Listen, I have, my opinions based on, years of being in this industry, but you actually have been under the knife so many times. So to be able to give that perspective that I don't have, I think is really what is going to, really help to grow this show in Europe. And obviously, listen, he's in Washington, D.C. So we got American guys, U.S. guys who are going to be watching the Sunday show as well. So I think,
I mean, I'm only so glad to be able to be here to share my opinion, my experiences. Apologies, I've had several texts come in. They've been trying to call the show, UK guys, although we've been talking to a guy in the States. It is what it is, it's been a pleasure to speak to Vic, and I just hope that, Vic is just one example of so many guys that I speak to and you speak to regularly. That are just a little bit living in too much hope, and they need a reality check. And I'm glad that I just hope that Vic lets us know, I'm sure he will do, before he pulls any trigger and he makes any kind of move forward physically, And I really just think that, there's so many people that will listen to that story, not necessarily that are going down the same route of potential body hair, but there'll be certainly people that can relate to it from the point of, I'm going to pull the trigger. I'm going to have a hair transplant. Even if the most ideal candidate in the world, they still need to be so informed that there are no guarantees. They need to keep their expectations in check. They need to understand the process and understand what it is that they're going to be able to achieve. And if we can provide them that information and we can empower them and we can keep them really, safe. Safety is something I didn't have. I ventured into it without that blanket of people comfort of being able to talk to people, just to be able to voice it, get it off your chest, be able to kind of sound it out with other like-minded people. It provides protection, and that's why this is why I'm so proud to be part of this show, because I can enable people to get to get protected and informed. And I really appreciate Vic's kind words, and as I've said before, Spencer, it's an honor to be part of the show. And thank you very much for kind of allowing me to be part of it.
Hey, listen, man, if I thought you were going to F up the brand, I never would have allowed you on the air. So you are definitely a obviously well-informed guy and a welcomed part of the Bald Truth. So, guys, listen, we have to close up shop. It's Super Bowl Sunday here, so I'm not going to go over time. It's been a great show. Spex, as always, thank you so much. Guys,
No problem.
UK listeners and European listeners and viewers, we're going to be doing some other recorded segments throughout the month. We're going to be on, again, live 2 weeks from today. So, feel free to contact us if you have any questions or if you have any suggestions or people that you might want to, an expert you might want us to have on the program. We're listening. You can post about it on the message forum. Check out the websites, of course, thebaldtruth.com, where you can check out archives of The Bald Truth US and The Bald Truth UK. And check out the message forum if you want to interact with other hair loss sufferers who are obviously dealing with exactly what you're dealing with. Go to baldtruthtalk.com. And please, before you make any decision to buy any product or service to treat your hair loss, and this goes for you guys in Europe as well, check out the American Hair Loss Association and make sure that those products and services are products and services that are recommended by the AHLA. That's AmericanHairLoss.org. Until next time, be strong, God bless, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the program, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you. Thank you.